All right, so I'm going to run through our review just like I did yesterday's material, where I went through the odds and then I'm going to require you to do the evens. Now, if you do join the CUDA Works class, then you do not have to download this worksheet. It will has all the answers on it for you. And so if you just write down the answers that I have here that I do for the odds, it gives it to you in multiple choice format. You can just enter all of the odd answers, and then you'll just have to do the even answers on your own and submit that. If you choose not to download the CUDA Works, because I know it's just one more thing that I'm having you do, then feel free, go ahead and just print this off and take a picture and send it to me. But I know some people had some issues with printers, so CUDA Works will help avoid that. It will also put all of your problems in multiple choice form. Some of you might like that. So let's go back. We're going to review all of the things that we've done very briefly. In our inequalities unit. And so I really like summed them up pretty quickly. So we have the basic inequalities, the ones where I'm just graphing. And so I put some two-step equations on here. I picked these in particular because I'm going to solve this like a regular equation, but because there's a negative in front of the variable when I solve, when I divide by that, I have to remember that I have to flip the sign. So I wanted to point that out. So when you see a problem like this, you're just going to go ahead, solve the equation. Just treat it like it's an equation. It's an inequality. I know I keep saying equation, but just treat it like it's an equation. So I add 7 on both sides, less than or equal to negative 18. And then I'll divide by the negative 9, divide by the negative 9. When I divide by negative 9, remember that means I flip the sign. And so I'm going to end up with x greater than or equal to positive 2. Negative 18 divided by negative 9, positive 2. And so then I can sketch my graph. When I sketch them by hand, I make it easy. It just, where am I concerned, or what number am I concerned about? I'm concerned about 2. I need this to be solid because it's greater than or equal to, and then also because it's greater than, I'm going to shade to the right. And so when you answer this on your CUDA Works, if you choose to do it that way, just jot down that this was the answer, or take a picture of this when we're done or something, and then you can just look at that and enter those as the correct answers as you go. So you don't have to memorize them. All right, so that's a basic solving of an inequality. That was a two-step. You could get some one-step inequalities. You might have to recognize, like you might get a graph on your test that has you recognize what inequality is showing, and just remember that it shades in the direction that this thing points. Okay, so this is pointing. The pointy edge is going to the right, and so it's going to shade to the right. And then you have to remember open or close circle. Open if it is not equal to, closed if it has the little line underneath it. Okay, so then we also had some and ors, and I don't know if you remember these, but I do want to refresh. Typically, now this isn't always, I can't say this is always, but typically and, you'll end up with the shading in between. And means overlap. Now there are scenarios that you don't end up with that, but usually what happens when we solve these is that the and is going to go together. Now, or, and I know it's terrible as a math teacher to make a generalization, but I just want you to think about things. I want you to have things to sort of watch out for. When we have or, this isn't always, but because it's everything, you're going to end up with things that kind of shoot out in opposite directions. Okay, so we have one and that we're going to do together, and you're going to do the one or by yourself. But when you do it, you just go ahead and solve the little inequalities separately. So over here, I'm going to divide by 2, and x is greater than, not greater than or equal to, don't look at that. I'm going to scribble that out and rewrite it. X is greater than 2, and then over here on the other side, I would add 9 and add 9, and so x is less than 4. So when I think about this, it's important that I put them not in the order that I solved them, although that's what happened here, but in the order numerically that they are. 2 is less than 4 is, so 2 has to go first and 4 goes next. They are both open circles, and if you think about what's happening, this says I'm going to shade to the right of 2, but at the same time, and at the same time to the left of 4. And so what I end up with is the shading that goes in between. Remember, when you have an or, you're typically they're going to go out in opposite directions. Okay, so then the next thing, and I made this just a real brief review because I think you can get most of what you need off of the review. So the next thing that we need to look at is sketching a linear inequality. This is the newest stuff, and then sketching systems of inequalities. And so when I sketch a linear inequality, what I said is if it's given in standard form, what you want to do is find your x-intercept and your y-intercept. And so here my x-intercept, I set 2x greater than 0, solve for x. X is 0, that means I put that point there at 0. And I'm going to do the same thing for the y. Negative 3y is greater than 0, and so y is 0. And oh boy, okay, so I didn't get very far, and I saw that coming because of this being equal to 0. So how am I going to do something if I have it set up like that? I know that this is a point on my graph, but it doesn't help me graph it. So I have to go to plan B. Here's my plan B. I am going to get y by itself. So I have 2x minus 3y is greater than 0. So I'm going to subtract the 2x. So negative 3y is greater than negative 2x. I minused 2x on both sides, minus 2x on both sides. And then I'll divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. So y is less than 2/3 x. Now what I've just done is found the slope. So from here I can use that slope. The negative divided by a negative became a positive, so I'm going to go up to right 3, and then I will connect my point. I will make a dotted line because of the fact that this is a greater than symbol in the original problem, not greater than or equal to. That would be a solid line. But now I have to do my checkpoint. And here's another kind of thing that we have to sort of look at plan B, because usually when I did my other video, I said do your test point so that like pick nice numbers, and we were able to use 0, 0 all the time. Well, I can't use 0, 0 because my line is cutting through 0, 0. So what I have to do is pick a test point that is outside of that. So I'm going to pick a test point up here, 1, 2. That means I'm going to put in 1 for x and 2 for y, and I want to see if it comes out as a true statement. So this is 2 times 1 for x minus 3 times 2 for y, and I have to show that that's greater than 0. So 2 minus 6 is greater than 0. Negative 4 is greater than 0. That is false. Because that is false, that means that my shading will not go in the direction or in the region where the 1, 2 is. That means that 1, 2 is not included in my solution, so my shading has to go down below. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this one because it was sort of a pesky one. We had to do a couple different things that we didn't normally have to do. I had to solve for y instead of using my x and y intercepts, and I couldn't use the test point 0, 0. So sometimes that's going to happen, but if it does, there's a way around it. It's just a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. Not a big deal. Okay, so I'm down to the last one. So this is the last one, and again, we sort of talked about this yesterday. So I just want us to get extra practice because this is the newest of the material. We are going to solve a system of inequalities, and so I'm going to graph this first line. Y is less than negative 3x plus 1. So that means I start at 1. My slope, so this is my start on the y-axis. My slope is negative 3 over 1. That means I go down 3, right 1. Because this is less than, this is going to be a dotted line, so I'll make my dotted line. That's my first line in this inequality. I'm going to do my test point. It doesn't go through 0, 0, so thankfully I can use my test point of 0, 0. So is 0 less than negative 3 times 0 plus 1? Is 0 less than 0 plus 1? Is 0 less than 1? That is true. That means I'm going to shade this guy in the direction of 0, 0. That means 0, 0 can be included on my shading. Okay, so now let's do the next one. Here's my next one. I'm going to move it all the way kind of around here, over here. So this is y is greater than or equal to x minus 3. Here is my start. So I'm going to start at negative 3 on the y-axis. My slope right here in front of the x is not visible. So remember, if we don't see a number in front of there, we assume that it's a 1. And so my slope ends up being 1 over 1. That means I'm going to go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Because this is greater than or equal to, this is a solid line. I don't get too worked up about whether your lines are super straight or not. Just kind of get them in there because I'm really more interested in the region that we're going to be shading. Okay? So now I'm going to finish this off with my test point. This line also doesn't go through 0, 0, so I can use 0, 0 as a test point. So 0 is greater than or equal to 0 minus 3. Is 0 greater than or equal to negative 3? That is also true. That means this line is going to shade in the direction of 0, 0. It's going to hit 0, 0, 0 as part of its answer. Well, now I have to find where there is overlap here. And if you look very closely, you can see in this sort of left side region is where the orange and the purple both cross. In fact, you could see some of my lines even cross together. So my actual solution is shaded in that region. Okay, so you have your test on this unit on Friday. So this is your review that you're going to work through. Again, I'm going to post this tomorrow, this video and this review. Actually, what I should do is get that, well, here you go. Take a picture of this part, get those answers down. Okay, and then take a picture of this part, get those answers down. I'll go back to that top one because I didn't give you time to do it. I suppose you can pause it. What am I talking about? You can pause the video and take a picture of it on your own. You don't need to wait for me. But there's the other answers. Again, your job is to finish the evens. And if you do it on CudaWorks, that I gave you the thing to sign up for, great. It will submit it for you once you hit your done. If you do it by printing out a copy or just doing it by hand and taking a picture, that is equally fine. Do what works best for you. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. All right, test tomorrow. Have a great day.